you were instrumental in negotiating the pension plan, weren't you?
I was very involved, and I was involved with Allie Reynolds. I was the National League representative, and Allie Reynolds was the American League. And we hired an attorney, a guy named J. Norman Lewis. And he represented us, and they, of course, had they had several attorneys when we had one of our meetings. And we went to the meeting room, and it was in Atlanta, Georgia. And we went there, and they would not allow us, the owners would not allow us to bring an attorney into the meetings. And so Alan and I both walked out of the deal. And in that deal, later on, Hank Greenberg, again involved in this, was appointed as a part of a committee. And Hank Greenberg, we got involved, and he also had John Galbraith, who was the owner of the Pittsburgh Pirates at that time, and they had one more man. I can't think of his name right now, but anyway, he was involved, and they worked out a way that we asked for 66% of the revenue from the All-Star game and from the first few games of the World Series. And they didn't go for that. So, but we did get 60%. And that was off of $1,000 that was given to the players by the television pension people. And that was the start of what is now, where players are making millions of dollars. And that changed the whole game of baseball and the history of the game.
So then Hank is the general manager for the Indians, and he brings you on board in 55 with a team that had won 111 games the year before. Did you think this was going to be the shot, that you were going to have get to the postseason with this team?
Well, the 1954 Cleveland Indians were a fantastic team, and lost 4-3 to the Giants in the World Series. But they had great players on that team, and they had a great pitching staff, probably the best pitching staff ever assembled. Okay, they had players like Bob Lemon and Bob Fuller, and they really had a pitching staff. And I thought we had a great chance to win that, and we were in first place on Labor Day in 1955. And then we hit a slump and didn't win. But that was my only, well, in 48 we had a pretty good team when I was with Pittsburgh. And 48 we had a good pitching staff, and of old-timers, Elmer, Riddle, and a guy, a rookie named Bob Chesness, who later on became an umpire in the major leagues, but he only had that one good year. And of course, the ultimate in those days were 4 playoffs. It was World Series. If we won the one-year National League and the World Series team would be the American League as opposition. But yeah, that was. I thought we had a great. Al Rosen, for example, the third base was outstanding. George Strickland, the shortstop. Hank called me about him, and he was playing for the Pirates. And I said, boy, get him if you can, because he can play. And he did get him, and he was a shortstop. Bobby Avila was the second baseman. Vic Wirtz was the first baseman. And we had some players that could really play. And we still didn't win. The Yankees just had so many great games. They had a great team, and on top of that, and so that was the one year that I had a real good chance of playing the World Series, but didn't make it.
Now you retired after that year with back troubles.
I had a bad back, and I missed a lot of games. And I went to a back doctor, and he said, well, the operation would be about the chance of 50% of working. I didn't think the odds were good enough, and so I retired. And Al Rosen was an influence. I was going to go into the stock market. And from there, I had signed up to go with Bayesian Company, which was a big stock company. Al Rosen later on worked for Bayes. But I got a call from San Diego, and they were looking for a general manager. And I said, well, I would like to put my name down. And so they called me up and they interviewed me in San Diego, and I got the job. And I was a GM at San Diego for 5 years. And that was my experience as a administrator. And I had to learn to do that, but I enjoyed it and enjoyed being that way. And then what happened to me was that Beck and Greenberg were going to get the expansion club in LA, where the California Angels said was going to be their team, and they were going to hire me as their farm director. And Greenberg went in and talked with O'Malley, and O'Malley said, well, we're going to change the amount of money and the amount of things you have to do to get your expansion club in business. And they got the Coliseum to play in, and that's when they set the record for all-time attendance, when they played in the World Series.
Do you ever look at it like you've had two distinct great careers in baseball, one as a player and one as a broadcaster? Are they separate to you in your mind, or are they one part of the whole big thing?
They are one part of a big thing. I got a chance to be a broadcaster for all that time, and I enjoyed it. And I worked with, in the beginning, 17 years with Lindsey Nelson, a great broadcaster in the Hall of Fame, and Bob Murphy, also in the Hall of Fame. And we were very good friends. And I was very fortunate not having any experience really in broadcasting. I did broadcast some games for my team in San Diego. We have broadcast Saturday afternoon games. And so I did have a little background, but not major league background.
Fast forward to 1975 now, after close calls with the Hall of Fame for several years, you finally got that call. What was it like getting the call? I guess it was from Jack Lang, who called you and said you got in.
It was Jack Lang. And it was my last year. And I wondered why. Every year. First of all, you had to have 5 years out of baseball, and then you have 15 years to get into the Hall of Fame. And every year I would get a lot of votes, but not quite enough. And you have to have 75%. And I often wonder why, if you hit all those home runs, led the league in runs batted in, the reason why, and I think the reason why, I don't know this, and I'm guessing, the reason why I played with bad teams. And we've lost 112 games in 1952. It was probably the worst team in baseball until the Mets came along in 1962. And I often joke about the whole thing. I was saying that they wanted someone with a losing experience, and I had that. There's no doubt about it.
Now you come back to Cooperstown almost every year for the...
I only missed 1 year, yes.
You have served on committees for the Hall of Fame, for the Veterans Committee. Why is the Hall of Fame special for you?
Well, one, it's the name. I mean, it's the best Hall of Fame in the history of sports. In my opinion, and there's no question about that. And I enjoy it. It's great to see the guys you played against and the guys you played with that are in the Hall of Fame. And it gives you a feeling of I made it.
And when you retired, you were 6th on the all-time home run list. 6th.
That's amazing, isn't it? What am I now? It's 100 and something?
Well, did you fully appreciate at the time where you stood in baseball history, how much you had accomplished in a very short period of time?
I certainly did. I was, Babe Ruth, of course, is #1 at that time. Now he's not. I was #2, and I led Killebrew by 1 vote. And of course, Killebrew's in the Hall of Fame, and he unfortunately did, one of the great guys that ever played the game. And yeah, I wondered about that.
Do you think about how you would have played and what would have happened if you could have had 10 more years on your career like that?
Well, if I had been able to keep my pace, I would have been at the top of the list. My average of home runs was second to Babe Ruth, and he played in 154 games. I played in 154 games. When Maris broke the record, he played in 162 games, I believe. And of course, that was a record that no one wanted broken. And actually, in the course, one time Roger Maris was in the Cleveland organization with Greenberg and whatever, and I worked with him on his hitting. When he came down to San Diego, we were a farm club of Cleveland, and I worked with him on his hitting. And Maris was a tremendous athlete and probably had the best arm I ever saw in baseball. And he also was a wonderful guy and high class. And when he broke that record, or tied that record, he was a real high class guy to be on a list with Babe Ruth. And they were opposite people, but they certainly were great hitters for that 1 year.